No one was prepared for what happened that evening on Oprah Winfrey's show. The studio, filled with the glow of spotlights and the anticipation of a live audience, promised another blockbuster interview. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, arrived to promote his new memoir, a book that had already sparked a media frenzy. But what began as a promotional appearance quickly escalated into a dramatic confrontation that stunned everyone, from the audience in the studio to millions watching at home. This moment went down in television history as a stark example of how the line between journalism and personal attacks can blur in seconds. Oprah's studio was the epitome of glamour and expectation. Soft spotlight beams reflected off the polished stage, and the audience, holding their breath, awaited the prince's entrance. A large screen behind the stage displayed the cover of Harry's book, Spare, featuring his pensive portrait. The audience, dressed in elegant gowns and suits, buzzed with excitement, while producers in headsets scurried backstage, ensuring everything was ready for the live broadcast. Cameras hummed softly, almost imperceptibly, and the sound of Oprah's heels clicking as she stepped onto the stage cut through the crowd's murmur. The co-hosts, invited guests, journalists, and a psychologist, sat on either side, smiling but with tension in their eyes. They knew Oprah wasn't afraid to ask tough questions. When Prince Harry stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. His charisma filled the space, a relaxed smile, a casual wave, and a restrained outfit, a navy blazer and a white shirt without a tie. He looked like a man who had finally found his voice after years of pressure. Oprah, dressed in an elegant burgundy gown, greeted him with a warm hug, and for a moment, it seemed like this would be a friendly, open conversation. "Harry, welcome to the show! Your book has already caused a seismic stir. Tell us, what inspired you to write it?" Oprah began, her voice soft but with a faint edge of challenge. Harry smiled, leaning back in his chair. "It was about telling my story. I wanted to share the truth, not just about myself, but about what it means to be part of a system that often dictates who you have to be." The audience applauded, and Oprah nodded, holding a copy of the book. But her expression shifted, a subtle narrowing of her eyes that the cameras didn't miss. The lens zoomed in on her face, and in that moment, it became clear, the friendly atmosphere was just a prelude. Oprah flipped through a few pages of the book, pausing at one chapter. "Harry, you write about your struggles with the royal family, about the pressure and expectations. But many say you betrayed your family by making these stories public. How do you respond to accusations that you're using your story for fame or money?" The question hit like lightning. The room fell silent, the faint murmur fading. One of the co-hosts, a journalist named Linda, nervously adjusted her glasses, while another guest, a psychologist named Dr. Ellis, clasped his hands tightly on his knees. Harry locked eyes with Oprah, his smile fading, but he maintained his composure. "I respect different opinions," he began, choosing his words carefully. "But this book isn't about betrayal. It's about being honest with myself and others. I wasn't seeking fame, I was seeking freedom." The audience erupted in applause, but Oprah didn't back down. Her voice grew sharper, tinged with sarcasm. "Freedom? Some might say it looks like a calculated move. You left the royal family, moved to America, signed deals with Netflix and Spotify. Doesn't it seem like you're selling your story to stay in the spotlight?" The silence in the studio was palpable. The camera caught Harry clenching his fists, his jaw tightening. Linda tried to intervene. "Oprah, maybe we could talk about how the book helps people with similar struggles." But Oprah silenced her with a gesture, her eyes fixed on Harry. "It's not about selling," Harry replied, his voice trembling with restrained emotion. "It's about telling the truth about mental health, about the pressure that breaks people. I lost my mother, I've seen the system destroy those I love. If that looks like a calculation, then maybe the problem is how people perceive the truth." Oprah leaned back in her chair, her smile turning cold. "Harry, you talk about truth, but don't you think you're selectively telling your story? You blame the royal family but don't mention your own mistakes. Isn't that hypocritical, criticizing others when you're not without fault?" The words landed like a slap. The audience gasped, and someone in the back began filming on their phone. Dr. Ellis tried to defuse the situation. I think we can all agree that truth has many sides. But Oprah cut him off again. No, let's be honest. Harry, you position yourself as a victim, but haven't you chosen this path yourself? Harry leaned forward, his eyes blazing. Oprah, I'm not a victim. I'm a person trying to live my life. I didn't choose to lose my mother. I didn't choose to live under a microscope. And I certainly didn't choose to have my words twisted for ratings. The room exploded in applause, but the tension only grew. The cameras hummed, operators frantically switching between close-ups of Harry and Oprah's faces. Producers backstage exchanged panicked glances, realizing the show was spiraling out of control. Oprah, sensing she was losing control of the conversation, went all in. Harry, you talk about mental health, but don't you think your actions, constant interviews, books, shows, are only making things worse? You blame others for the pressure, but aren't you creating that pressure for your family? The studio froze. Even the applause died down. Harry stood up from his chair, his face pale but his eyes burning with resolve. Oprah, he said, his voice quiet but cutting through the silence. I came here to talk about my book, about my journey. But you've turned this into an attack. I won't sit here and justify being human. If you want to talk about pressure, let's talk about how your questions make people feel weaker, not stronger. He turned to the audience, his voice growing stronger. I wrote this book so people who feel trapped know they're not alone. And I won't let my story be used for another scandal. Oprah opened her mouth to respond, but Harry raised his hand. I'm done, he said and headed for the exit. The room erupted in a mix of applause and shouts. Linda and Dr. Ellis looked stunned, while producers backstage frantically signaled the operators to capture every step of Harry's departure. As Harry disappeared backstage, the studio descended into chaos. Some audience members stood and clapped, while others whispered, filming the final moments on their phones. Oprah sat motionless, her face a mask of professional calm, but her fingers tightly gripped Harry's book. Linda tried to lighten the mood, saying, Well, that was unexpected. But her voice was drowned out by the crowd's buzz. The moment went viral instantly. Clips from the interview flooded social media, and the hashtag Harry vs. Oprah trended worldwide. Some accused Oprah of unethical questioning, while others praised her for honesty. Harry left the studio with his head held high, but his words about mental health and truth lingered in the minds of everyone who witnessed the moment. The confrontation sparked heated debates. Some believed Harry was right to defend his story, while others thought Oprah was just doing her job by asking tough questions. The media was divided between headlines like, Prince Harry humiliates Oprah, and Oprah exposes Harry's truth. But the core question remained, does a public figure have a right to privacy when their life becomes part of the public discourse? And was Harry right to walk out? What do you think about this conflict? Who was right, Harry, defending his truth, or Oprah, seeking sharp answers? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated on stories like this. After Prince Harry dramatically walked off the set of Oprah Winfrey's show, the atmosphere in the studio remained charged, like the calm before a storm. The cameras continued to hum, capturing every glance and whisper, while producers backstage scrambled to salvage the broadcast. The audience was divided. Some cheered Harry's principled stand, while others whispered that his exit was overly theatrical. But no one anticipated that the story was far from over. What happened next only added fuel to the fire of this television saga. Oprah's studio, once a beacon of glamour, now resembled an arena after a heated round. The spotlights cast harsh light on Harry's empty chair, and the large screen behind the stage still displayed the cover of his book, Spare. The sounds of clicking microphones and operators' whispers mingled with the audience's buzz. The co-hosts, journalist Linda and psychologist Dr. Ellis, sat unsure of how to react. Linda nervously twirled a pen in her hands, while Dr. Ellis glanced at Oprah, hoping she'd take control. Producers backstage gestured frantically, one even shouting into a headset, "We need to do something, this is live!" But Oprah, as always, maintained her composure, at least outwardly. Oprah stood from her chair, her burgundy dress rustling faintly as she approached the edge of the stage. Her face was calm, but her eyes gleamed with determination. She raised a hand, silencing the audience. "Friends," she began, her voice steady but piercing the room. "We've just witnessed a moment that will go down in history. But let's be honest, the truth can be uncomfortable. And my job as a host is to ask questions that make us think." The audience reacted mixedly. Some clapped, others booed quietly. Linda tried to interject. "Oprah, maybe we could discuss how Harry's raising important issues about mental health." But Oprah silenced her with a gesture, her gaze fixed on the crowd. "Harry talks about truth, but is he ready to hear the truth about himself?" she continued. "He left the royal family, built a media empire, but when asked about accountability, he just walks away." Her words sparked a new wave of reactions. Some audience members applauded, supporting Oprah, while others shouted, "That's unfair!" The camera caught a front-row viewer filming the scene, their face alight with excitement. The tension in the studio was mounting, and it was clear Oprah wasn't backing down. Suddenly, the backstage doors swung open, and Prince Harry re-entered the studio. The audience gasped, and Oprah, for a fleeting moment, lost her composure, her eyebrows raised slightly. Harry looked calmer, but his posture radiated resolve. He didn't sit down, instead stopping in the middle of the stage, hands in his pockets. "I wasn't going to come back," he said, his voice low but clear. "But I can't let my words be twisted. Oprah, you said the truth is uncomfortable. The truth is, you're using your platform to make people feel smaller, not stronger." The audience erupted in applause, louder and more unified this time. Dr. Ellis nodded as if in agreement, while Linda looked like she wanted to disappear. Oprah, undeterred, crossed her arms and responded, "Harry, I'm asking the questions millions want answered. You can't blame me for doing my job. Your job isn't to tear people down." Harry shot back. "I came here to talk about mental health, about how we can help each other. But you made it personal. And you know what? I'm not playing that game." Harry turned to the audience, his eyes shining with emotion. "I didn't write this book to blame anyone," he said, his voice trembling but filled with strength. "I wrote it for people who feel unheard. For those afraid to speak about their struggles. For those who think they're alone. And if that makes anyone in this studio or watching at home uncomfortable, maybe that's the truth you need to hear." The room exploded in ovation. People rose to their feet, clapping, some wiping away tears. Even Linda, who had been flustered, began to applaud. Dr. Ellis raised a hand as if to add something, but words were unnecessary. The moment belonged to Harry. Oprah stood silently, her face unreadable, but her fingers tightly gripped the back of her chair. She tried to regain control, saying, "Harry, I respect your passion, but Harry cut her off. "No, Oprah. Respect isn't just words. It's actions. And I'm done." He turned and walked off the stage for good this time. The backstage doors slammed shut, the sound echoing through the studio. The cameras captured every detail, Oprah's trembling hands, the shocked faces in the audience, and the producers scrambling to figure out how to wrap up the broadcast. The studio descended into chaos. Some audience members chanted Harry's name, while others whispered, accusing him of being overly sensitive. Oprah returned to her chair, trying to regain control. "Well, that was emotional," she said with a faint smile, but her voice betrayed tension. Linda and Dr. Ellis tried to fill the silence, discussing the importance of mental health, but their words were lost in the crowd's buzz. Clips of the episode flooded social media instantly. Videos of Harry's return and rebuttal racked up millions of views. Hashtags #Harry vs. Oprah and #Truth Matters trended, with comments ranging from "Harry's a hero" to "Oprah was just doing her job." The media split, some praising Harry's courage, others accusing him of dodging accountability. The confrontation became a turning point. Harry's book Spare soared to the top of the charts, but debates about his actions only intensified. Some saw him as proving his sincerity, while others thought he played on the audience's emotions. Oprah's reputation also took a hit. Some criticized her for crossing a line, while her supporters insisted she was asking tough but fair questions. But the bigger question lingered. Does a public figure have the right to defend their story when under attack? Was Harry right to return and speak his truth, or was it just a bid for attention? And can journalism remain ethical when it teeters on the edge of personal attacks? What do you think of this moment? Was Harry right to stand his ground, or did Oprah have the right to ask tough questions? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this.